Okay, so we are here with the man himself, the man who has many names, but apparently his real name is Ryan. I call you Bill. My name is Bill as well, but I call you Bill more than I call you Ryan. Stargate Bill. What's your real name?
My real name's Ryan Shepperson. That's
Shepperson.
my government name.
Yeah.
My there's numerous variations of my sci-fi name, which has ended up at Stargate Bill. Now, it's got to a point in time where I kind of think maybe my name should go back to Ryan, just for it being a bit easier on myself, because I'm kind of getting bored of being called Bill. But it's also got to the point now where I'm known as Bill by too many people who don't know I'm called Ryan, that it would probably be weird for me to change my name back to Ryan, because then they'd be like, why are you going by the name Ryan now? And then, so
I would like
yeah,
to.
I don't know. I kind of like, we've kind of ruined it now, because I kind of like the idea that people who know me as Ryan are like, yeah, you're good, you're cool,
As in, like, if you know your real name's Ryan, then you must be a real friend.
Yeah.
Well, as someone who's actually called Bill, I take personal offense to the fact that you're getting bored of this name. You should try it at all times. And also, you were the first person that popped up in my DMs when I moved back to Robertson from Toastman, saying, "What the fuck's happened to Toastman?"
Yeah, true.
So if you go back to your real name,
what the fuck did happen to Toastman?
I just decided to change it back.
So you see my dilemma.
I totally understand. You're just 2 years ahead of you.
Right. How was the transition?
It was absolutely fine, apart from a few people like yourself who seemed to get irrationally angry at the fact that I was no longer called Toastman on Facebook.
It was a good name.
So it was a good name. And we're also here with Jack. Jack, how you doing?
I'm alright, yeah.
You're particularly excited to be talking to Cryptic Shift.
Absolutely.
As your best friend, I have seen you become very heavily involved in Cryptic Shift fandom.
Oh yeah.
Recently, and you've got have you seen Jack's Cryptic Shift collection?
Yeah, it's good, man. It's probably up there along with mine, because I seem to lose things, and that bothers me a little bit, because I kind of made it a thing of collecting stuff, which I'm sure you guys do the same. But,
yeah, so you're a hourder of your own, you try and keep one of everything.
Yeah, in 30 years' time, no one will give a shit, but I'll be like, this is sweet, trying to work a fucking vinyl player when everything's holographic. But
it's a few things from back in the day that I think we just fucked it and didn't really keep any copies of, and trying to hunt them down now, it's like they're all gone.
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of old. Yeah.
There's a time span of after 5 years you're like, I don't fucking want this anymore. But then after 10 years you're like, I really wish I still had that.
Yeah.
There's after the 5 years is when you chuck loads of stuff out. I remember I chucked out all my old VHS tapes. Obviously when DVDs became a thing.
Yeah.
And then I just lost so many sick retro VHSs, and now I'm like, fuck, I should have just kept them.
Yeah, I just got back into it, man. They're really cheap, so.
Yeah, you've got quite a cool collection.
There's something about just the aesthetic of it all that's really cool. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm playing it on a fucking plasma screen TV, and and it's old, and it goes into a square and half the fucking screen's crossed. And to be fair, you can't really make it out, but
there's something charming about that, though.
Yeah, it's nice, man. It's like
listening
to subtitles and stuff, so you kind of have to crank the TV so fucking loud, and the audio mix is all over the place. Yeah. It's good, man.
So what we should talk about Cryptic Shift. That's kind of why we're here. As much as you're a friend, there's probably a productive conversation that we can have regarding Cryptic Shift, because you've a lot of bands obviously been kind of quiet in the quarantine spell, plans put on hold. You kind of just managed to get to that point before the whole lockdown thing kicked off, where all of your shit was obviously finished and ready to be put out there, which is kind of lucky, because I know you spent so long making the record. You know, like it's not implausible that you could have still been 3 months away and, you know, been delayed at this point. You know, so I guess I want to ask is, do you think that the fact that we're in, obviously it's a pain in the ass being in quarantine, but have you noticed, you know, maybe more people being available to listen to stuff, being stuck in the house or something like that? Like, do you think there's a difference between the way the album has dropped in comparison to if everything was normal?
Absolutely. Like, no one saw this coming, so you can kind of, like, on one hand, I want to say that, you know, now's the time for people to be putting new content out and stuff, and like new material and stuff like that. Like, as you said, like, there was nothing stopping us from being delayed.
Mm-hmm.
But like, even when we set the release date with Blood Harvest and stuff like that, there was no, I don't even know if maybe all the pandemic in China was a thing, but I don't even think it had spread out to the point. Like when it got to like Italy and Italy was in the news, that's when it kind of got worrying. Because then it was like, you know, well, that then soon after we got we're in lockdown and stuff. Like the last thing I did before lockdown was I was at band practice. I think it was Slime Lord rather than Cryptic, but so like, you know, no one saw that coming. And again, no one really knew how bad it was going to be or how long. You know, it's been like 3 months now.
Yeah.
And it's like now things are finally kind of going back to normal. Like me and Xander are talking about like practicing again and stuff. And,
yeah.
And that's, but like Joss and John can't get to Leeds because public transport is still like, there's maybe like one option a day and it's pretty expensive and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, so it's a
but
bit
back to the record. Like, it definitely seems well. We knew it was going to do good, just because we knew that it was a really good record, and because we spent I think it's because we spent so much time on making sure it was right that it was like, there's no way we can really allow this to just be brushed under. We always kind of knew that it was going to be something that it was in our like top priority to push it out there like worldwide and stuff and make sure I got the best treatment, because as you guys know, we spent like, I guess like 3 years overall in putting everything together for the record.
I mean,
so
to us it feels like ages ago.
The
groundwork for that album was being laid down. Like I remember seeing your updates from ages ago, just talking about starting working on the album. And,
like we played Moonbelt at Belterfest for like the first time. And that was like 17 minutes long, and then we thought it was finished then, or maybe we were like, maybe there's a middle section that we hadn't figured out yet, but we were like, you know, we really want to play some new stuff. So, and we had that headline slot, so I think we got like an hour to play or something. So it was like, how can we fill this thing? Let's try it. And it was all right, man. Like there's definitely footage of that as well, which is actually not that bad.
From what I remember, the performance of it was pretty darn good. Yeah, everyone was kind of bewildered at what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Is this when you played Moonbelt? Sorry, I dropped out for a second there. Was this when you played Moonbelt
it was
the first
time? The Belterfest first time, the headline slot. I don't know if you made it.
I was there,
Oh, right, yeah.
I just remember you coming up to me.
That was the thing, because it's obviously hard to expect anyone to understand what was going on at that point, because the idea of that track was somewhat in its infancy regarding like what people knew of it and stuff.
Yeah.
Because it was never really.
You came up to me right before your set, outside, and you were like, "You want to know something cool?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" You're like, we're opening with a 20-something minute track.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah, that was like, because I think at that point, because the track itself is like it's in like 6 like chapters or like 6 like motions, kind of you know, it follows through in different passages and stuff. We didn't necessarily know if it was like, we knew it was gonna be long, but we didn't want to, like, you know, when there's bands out there that have put songs out where it's like part 1, part 2, and part 3 and stuff like that. So we didn't necessarily know until the production was done and like how we were gonna lay it out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily like we knew the length, but it wasn't like we were like, oh, we're working on this track and it's 25 minutes long. And I don't think it was ever like that. I don't think it was never written on the whole, oh, let's write this obnoxiously long song or anything like that. It kind of just happened.
I mean,
I don't know.
one of my favorites.
What. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and like that's the thing. I think one of the things about it is, and I've shown it to quite a few people as well, who at the offset, they're kind of like 25 minutes, man. Like I don't know if I can be bothered listening to that. And they've all had like really positive things to say. And I think, like you say, it's sort of split into like passages or whatever, but it doesn't feel like it's obnoxiously long for the sake of being long. It flows really nicely, and every part of it is.
I've always felt that way, like performing it and stuff, which is good. It never feels like. To be honest, I kind of prefer playing that song to the other three. Like, not that I have a favorite or a preference or anything. It's just more so. I get to play a lot of different styles, so it kind of keeps me on my toes rather than, the other tracks are very like, there's a lot of returns. They're like in a certain style, like, like Planetary is a bit more upbeat and kind of not jazzy in a way, but there's a lot going on up there on the hands. Arctic Chasm's more, it's kind of straightforward, but there's a lot going on the feet. And then Hypergeon's a bit of a mix between the two, but with Moonbelt, it's like loads of like awesome inspirations that went into that song. So it's kind of nice to, kind of have a track that's quite varied. Again, not that this was anything that was ever planned. I don't think, I don't really know. Xander's probably the better person to know why that track ended up the way it did regarding songwriting and influence and stuff like that. But for me, it was kind of just, it did. We always knew it was going to be long, but that long, it makes the other tracks on the record look short, and they're like 7-8 minutes long each themselves. So
because I think it's interesting because a lot of people that will say, "Oh, well, I can't listen to a 26-minute track," it's whereas they're maybe the same people that say, "Oh, I can't listen to the 1 8-minute track that's maybe on a lot of other metal records."
Yeah, right.
But then they're listening to Arctic Chasm and and thinking that it's a short song because the mentality is kind of shifted. I think it says
I feel
a lot
the same though. It's crazy
for Moonbelt as well. Like for you to say there that the other three ones are kind of simple. I think that's pays tribute to how complex Moonbelt is because you don't listen to the other ones and go, these are simple little tunes. They're still really long 8-minute, 7-minute complex techie kind of songs. They're not. It's not like you say they're simple songs, but that's in comparison to this 26-minute sort of journey of complexity. Right. So,
Yeah, I appreciate them comments, but like for me, I think it's maybe how I've been conditioned, like especially like the Arctic Chasm, because that was like the first time we kind of played around with Stranger, like delving into different like time signatures and stuff like that, and then Moonbelt was one of those, like, I think we started on that first and finished it last, as you'd probably imagine.
Sure.
Because that one was always something that Xander was like writing and stuff like that. So I think over that time, it kind of became easier to at least get my head around the other tracks because we probably practiced them more as well. Because it was more, once that was complete, it was like, oh, we can go through that track and stuff like that. But then like Moonbelt, it was more of a memory kind of thing. But now it's like, nice. I like, it's really funny because me and John kind of have this like pre-show ritual sometimes where we maybe like, when you get the whole, you go in a setup in like 5 minutes and you completely forget how everything goes. So we like to like go through the tracks like super fast, like not even like play them, just kind of like singing the riffs and going like riff, and then like doing Moonbelt like that. It's like 5 minutes long, like going through this track really long, really fast, and that's always fun. But like that's, I think that's what I mean when I say that like it's the easiest one out of the four on the record. Not even, well, I don't even know, man. It's crazy because a lot of people do expect it to be like maybe complex, but I think that's because it takes a while to digest the track, which I appreciate because I always kind of knew that it would be off-putting to people. You know, the people who say like, "Oh, you know, I'm not listening to this 25-minute long song."
Totally.
Kind of like attention span sort of thing. Like,
but it wasn't necessarily written for those people. I think it was more written for like we kind of did that out of the whole. Well, we like listening to music at face value and not necessarily been like put off by anything like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Like someone could listen to it and go, "Yeah, it's a 25-minute song, but I didn't like this, I didn't like that about the songwriting, and I think I didn't like the mix of the influences and stuff like that." And that's like, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many better reasons to not like a song than
like
the track length.
We kind of understood that people would be put off by it, and their track obviously wasn't written to entertain those people. It was more written to entertain those who, had the interest to at least be like, yeah, I'll give this a go.
Totally,
and
yeah.
I think that's and in return now with the record now, those are the kind of fans that we've started to see interest from. There's interest from a lot of people worldwide and stuff, and it's always, there's not been one negative review about Moonbelt. If anything, it's about the other tracks, and I don't know if that's because it's so contrasting between the two. Like, obviously, if you listen to the record for the first time and you hear Moonbelt, it's like, wow, this is like incredibly progressive.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially like when you're not, when you don't understand the context of it being the 6 passages.
Well, that's the thing. Like, see, when I actually got the physical copy of the record and stuff, and looking through, because I've been trying to dissect those lyrics for ages, and I'd been messaging Xander, and I'd be getting it slightly wrong, and he'd tell me what it was, but he's like, just wait till you get the whole thing. But I found it really interesting to see that you've done that. You've sort of, it's split into sections, and I was speaking to Xander as well, and he was talking about how it's not just the lyrics that are telling the story, but trying to sort of like convey that story through the sections of the music as well.
Right.
And it's like it's a totally different thing, because I remember you sent me an earlier version of Moonbelt ages ago, and
we've had a version of Moonbelt that we've been listening to.
Honestly, that SoundCloud link, I was so scared that Xander was gonna like just yeet it at some point, Right. And every time I go on SoundCloud and it's still there, I'm like, fuck yeah. But you said you were like, eyes closed, pay attention, no sharing, wee winky face. I stuck it on my way up to the climbing wall, and it was kind of like that. I'm walking along, I'm not paying it maybe the attention that it deserved at the time, because I'm walking along, crossing roads, jumping into the shop, and then it was before you guys started promoting that the album was actually coming out. I sort of thought to myself, I was like, I wonder if that link still works. Scrolled up a conversation and listened to it, and I smoked a big joint and sat there and literally just focused in and paid attention. And I think it's one of those things that if you kind of like lend yourself completely to focusing on the track, there's so much in it,
Right. Of course, man. Of course.
And I think it works for it.
And that's the demo version from.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe 2018.
That's been kicking around
actually,
for a while.
Probably 2017, maybe.
I think it was 2017 you sent us that.
Yeah.
You got totally Judas on that as well, because you were sending it to me and you were like, make sure you don't share it with anyone though. And you obviously sent it to Jack as well, saying make sure you don't share it with anyone though. And within 5 minutes, I was in a conversation with Jack, being like, look at this, man. You gotta listen to this. And he's replying to me like, oh, I've already got it, man.
Amazing. It happens, man.
But
it happens, man.
Totally. So before we'll try and have a big conversation about the album and all the inspiration that went into it. But in terms of just Cryptic Shift from the beginning, I think we've noticed a big change. Obviously, musically, it's became more progressive, more death metal, more sci-fi in general. Obviously, the first single that came out doesn't scream to me that it was massively sci-fi. Obviously, there was inspiration there, and then when you get to Celestial Realms, the sci-fi is really coming in. And then we get to obviously the debut album, and it's like the sci-fi is just pumped up to the absolute forefront of everything. How did that kind of develop over time? Or was that just kind of the natural way that the Cryptic Shift went?
Well, when me and Xander formed the band, that was like in, I guess, 2015, maybe 2014. We were already in another band, so together, and it was kind of like the band kind of parted ways with other members, and we'd already had prior material that was already going in a certain direction that other members didn't necessarily like. Like Death Crusher was written around that time. I remember working with previous members on that one. But the first track you're referencing, Dust Bowl, that was like a straight, okay, we have this track. That was like maybe even like vocal structures were taken because Xander wasn't, he was just a guitarist. I basically turned around to him one night and was like, I'm thinking of leaving this band, so either I leave and you stay, or we say goodbye to the others and we wanted to do something like Sepultura, Beneath the Remains period kind of stuff that like really, because that's kind of death thrash in a way. I think me and Xander weren't too into death metal. We kind of scratched the surface with death metal anyway at that point. We were way more into like thrash. And
well, I remember you as like
that you would be
music.
into. And that's like, I think that's kind of a more accessible genre to be into when you're like, because I was only like 17, 18 around that time.
Yeah.
So, and the bass player at the time was really into thrash and stuff. So we were really into that stuff, and we kind of scratched the surface on like death metal and stuff. Like, I've kind of always been into death metal, but it has predominantly been like thrash metal and stuff like that, at least until the last 3 or 4 years for me, at least. And that's kind of how my music taste evolved. Same with Xander, really. So Dust Bowl was a thing, and that Sepultura Arise was a thing. That cover was just because we had the time in the studio and we were kind of covering it live anyway, so we thought let's just record it. We didn't. It was kind of just like, we don't have another song to throw on this, but let's just throw a cover on there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You see it happen a lot with like younger bands, especially. But yeah, from there, like, because Xander had recently moved over to vocals and guitar, and we got Henry on guitars as well. We knew John. John was in a band called Exiled before.
I remember we seen them. I think. We seen them at Boom one time when we were playing down there.
And
I think it was very And I remember being like, that bass player is gnarly.
Because Cryptic did play that show. We played the after show. I don't know if you were at that.
Yeah, I think we drove back pretty swift.
Right.
That night. Because it was at a different venue, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a bar. Also, it was in like the city centre. But so we knew John for a little while, and he was obviously a really good bass player anyway. And then we got to a point where the Beyond the Celestial Realm stuff was coming up, and the bass player at the time wasn't showing too much interest. So we basically just asked John if he wanted to get involved, and obviously the music was like way what he was into, because at that point, like you said, that's when we kind of got more into sci-fi stuff, especially bands like Vector and Voivod, Atheist, and then like hints of death metal kind of stuff, but it was more thrash. But I guess like Revocation as well, they've always been an influence to us guys and stuff like that, which is one of the fewer kind of bands that aren't necessarily too involved in like the death metal scene. You'd kind of put them on there as like, it's kind of tech metal, but they're kind of like on the
thrash and death.
They're just like, they write really good songs and they're really good songwriters.
Yeah, totally.
And there's no like grittiness to it or like sharp edge, if that makes sense. That's kind of how I view them. But they write great stuff. But that we've always been influenced by them, and I think that's when that influence as well started seeping through. At least with Xander's songwriting. But But yeah, John was like totally on board, so we got John involved. And then shortly after, John only joined on like I'll play on this record, and maybe I'll do a couple of live shows, because he was committed living in Liverpool and been in exile, but then exiled like fell apart shortly after that anyway.
Yeah, I remember.
And so John ended up joining full time. He moved to Manchester to study, so he was kind of closer anyway. There was some times where he was travelling from Liverpool, and we'd drop him off in Liverpool after shows and stuff. But then from that point, we that's when you'll know us from, I'd imagine, mainly.
I think
with
that
Henry and John, right?
That's the kind of original lineup to us. I think that's when we became friends.
Sure,
I think.
Sure. Like Thrashaholic, I'm sure you knew me and maybe Xander and John.
Yeah, that was our first experience of
when we first played Scotland. It was with John and Henry.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. It would have been, because it was I think it was a headline show at was it Studio 24?
Yeah.
The venue that closed, right?
Yeah.
But the floor show facing like away from the stage, or facing the stage,
I
actually.
remember. Yeah.
And that was actually really fucking cool, man. Because I don't think we played Glasgow.
How many times have you been up here? There's like 2 or 3 times now. Is that right?
Maybe more.
Yeah, it would be more.
We did that show. Then we did one where it was, you did 2 release shows, and we were on both the.
Yes, yeah.
We were on the both Edinburgh and Glasgow shows.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Then.
That was the one where you made pasta in my old flat, right?
Yeah, right. I think so.
That was iconic.
Then we did Belterfest. And I think that was just the one show.
Then I put you guys on in Opium fairly recently.
Yeah, and that's when we played. That's when
early last year, maybe.
You put us on an Opium twice. There was the one show. Was it twice?
There was one time with Slime
put you on
and
there was one. Yeah. But and that was the last time we've been.
Yeah.
Because we did the Icebox the night before.
Yes. Yeah,
and that was without Joe.
Yeah. And
I'm pretty sure we've done Opium once before, because we played with. Did we do it with Tempered? No, that was 13 not in Glasgow. And then we played somewhere after that. Some like other town.
You played Dunfermline, right?
That was it. Yeah.
And Monty.
And that was a dumb show. I don't think anyone was there other than Tempered. I even think
it's
support
very
bands
hit
left
or
as well.
miss. Very hit or miss if you play in Dunfermline.
Which
it's a shame.
It's one of those when you feel inconvenient performing because someone's playing snooker in the other side of the room. It's like, wow, I feel like I should just go home, even though I'm, miles away.
Yeah,
but it's one of those shows. But they haven't. But I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something.
I mean, it's a reasonable amount that we've kind of got on you over the years. But that was definitely the lineup where I think we became pals with John and
Henry and John. Yeah. So then we obviously played with that lineup. Like at that point, we didn't stop writing, but writing slowed down just because we kind of had the opportunity to go and like play on the weekends rather than practice.
Yeah.
And because we were so like new to that, we were like making a big excuse out of it. So, like we'd be going down to London quite a lot. And
well, you gigged pretty heavily in that time.
Yeah,
I remember,
for
like
sure.
Through 2017, 2018, you were
we were all young and
hard.
Henry drove, and we never had a driver before, so in the
Yeah,
band.
It's incredible how much of a difference it makes having someone that could drive.
Yeah, which is awesome because you kind of learn to get tight. I'm sure you guys feel the same.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Because there's one thing, because that was when it went from performing in front of people we already knew, and kind of not taking it too seriously, to being like, holy shit, like I'm in London, I don't know anyone.
Yeah, totally.
I don't like some of those people now. I've been great friends with for years, same with you guys. But it's like there's a whole other level of pressure that I'd assume I'm gonna maybe feel again one day. I don't really feel like I've felt that way in a while, just regarding because you get used to that,
Totally.
Kind of you come accustomed to it. So
well, I mean, I would like to think that Visitations is going to be successful enough that you're going to be able to go to new places on the back. It's a real shame that obviously this year would have been a really good time for you to play loads of shows on the back of the release of the album, especially considering it seems to be doing really, really well. It's unfortunate now that no one knows when live music's really going to come back, but hopefully
I don't expect to play a show promoting that record this year. It would be nice, but I don't want to go out and play shows to crowds that are limited because people
absolutely.
And I don't want anyone to come and see us and have kind of like a bad experience because it wasn't necessarily the best show it could have been.
Whether you like it or not, underground metal is not always going to bring out loads and loads of people. You really need to have as many people, given the option.
Yeah, for sure.
Underground music for me anyway, it just doesn't work if you have to limit the amount of people there because half the time not shit loads of people are there anyway. You need to rely on as many people as possible feeling comfortable being there to make it what it is. So it is unfortunate that it's probably going to be a wee while until you guys get to play a show, but maybe because it's quite it's a big grandiose kind of record, it gives it a bit of time to get under people's skin, so that by the time maybe next year when you start to play these gigs, people are going to be like, fuck yeah, I've actually managed to wrap my head around how crazy this album is.
It's mad, man. But wait. We'll get on to that in a bit because I guess it's one of those things that I don't want to go too off topic right now with it because I think we could. But just referring back to, did we go through Cosmic Dreams yet?
I think we're coming up to Cosmic Dreams.
Awesome. That track was just that was we kind of experimented with death metal at that point. So we wrote a track before called Entombed in Flesh, and maybe that was after Cosmic Dreams. It was around the time of then though. And at that point was when myself and Xander and I guess John had started getting into death metal and stuff. Henry was always he was into all sorts of genres. You guys know, he went off and now he does his folk stuff.
Aye.
So he was kind of really into metal, but not necessarily complete devotion to the genre. He was kind of so we'd all bring CDs along, and maybe I'd bring along I don't know, Metallica, for example. Xander would bring Time Ghoul. John would bring. John's always fun because you never know if he's going to pull out an Atheist CD or Bunny Brunel live.
Yeah, totally.
Bass, jazz stuff.
Yeah, totally.
But then Henry would either porn, for the most part, it was jazz stuff or stuff like Bob Dylan. Never necessarily been his discography record about
yeah, totally.
But we're gonna listen to this.
Henry always struck me as the kind of guitar player who appreciated metal for the technicality of the playing and stuff. It was maybe not really embedded in his heart to be a metalhead.
It wasn't
in
his personality or anything like that.
Yeah,
to be honest.
But he was a really great metal guitar player.
Which was good because when it did come time where Henry wanted to leave the band, it was that's totally fine, dude, go ahead. It wasn't.
Yeah, that's it. You totally understand why.
Yeah, it was good. He left on complete good terms. Every member's left on good terms, which is something I'm really fortunate about. Just because, sometimes it gets to a point where, I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but having to, you hear stories about having to kick people out, and you don't necessarily understand, especially when you're younger, how much people might really enjoyed doing stuff.
Yeah, totally. It's never going to be a nice thing to have to kick somebody out. But then if somebody wants to leave and gives you a good reason, there's no reason for you to feel really shit about that.
And Henry's gone on and done great things. So It's like
totally,
awesome to see. Awesome to see that, which is sweet. I see him now and then, but I wish I could see him more. But we're both like really busy, and it's like when we do see each other, it's completely like awesome. Like nothing's really changed anyway. So
I mean, you're friends.
Same with you guys, really. Like it's one of those things. What's new? Nothing much. Just playing shows, like
totally, man.
But no, and then from then, I mean, before Henry left, we kind of started writing some of Visitations. Henry's credited as a writer on the last track, Planetary Hypnosis, because he wrote maybe one of the middle sections. I'm not too familiar with which section he wrote, but obviously that suggests to me that at that point, there's a couple of tracks on material we're working on now as a follow-up to Visitations that were jammed years ago. It's kind of like it was all just a big sift through a lot of unfinished stuff.
Yeah, totally.
We kind of just let Xander orchestrate that because once Henry had left, Xander was already working on stuff anyway, and then Joe joined the band for which is cool because we wanted to work with someone who we already knew, because you got to obviously like put a lot of trust. Working with complete strangers like can be cool, but there's a lot of you got to get to know the person, and
totally.
You're giving them a lot of trust, right?
It's always easier to have an idea of what someone's like before you have to start working with them, obviously. So the ideal scenario is to get someone who's a friend already.
Here, am I completely mistaken, or was Joe not? Was he in a band with John before? Or
he was.
Is he in Exile?
Yeah, he was in Exile with John. So they went to university together and stuff. So they were like still really good friends. Me and Xander didn't necessarily think of Joe right away until John suggested it, and then it was like, all right, it makes perfect sense. So, John, we got Joe in.
I remember being really surprised because I think that Thrashaholic that we came down to, and we were watching. I remember watching Exiled and being like, shit, this guy. I was so focused on John because he's just he's such a captivating player.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
I've always had a big thing for bassists that kind of take center stage, and but I remember as well. I think it was pretty soon after that Thrashaholic that they broke up and everything. And when you had announced that Joe was joining the band, I was like, "Fucking, I know this guy!"
Yeah.
It seems like everything's just coming together.
It was good, man. It was good because it's kind of weird because there's an ancient history within the band. I was in a band who played with Xander's other band. Well, the band before Cryptic Shift, basically. I was in another band that played with that band, and then they needed a drummer, so I ended up joining that band from my old band. Then John ended up joining from Exiled, and then Joe ended up joining from Exiled. And then I guess the record was kind of already written anyway, at least. So there wasn't necessarily too much room for Joe to write anything, which was completely fine. Probably what was best for us anyway, because otherwise it may have or may not have overcomplicated anything. Joe was just just write your solos and stuff. The rest is kind of covered, I guess. Because he was kind of didn't want to join us and then be like, we should do things this way, So cool. There was I just had good times with Joe. Played a lot of cool shows with Joe, to be honest. His first show with us was with, I think it was with Suffocation. No, it was going to be with Suffocation, but then it turned out to be with Sacred Reich. I think it was July that year. And then the second show with Joe was Suffocation. So, awesome. We played with Sacred Reich in London as the first show with Joe. So it was welcome to the band. It was quite nice. Cause,
totally.
I don't think Exile got to play any higher profile shows outside of Liverpool. So that was kind of cool. Because we'd already done a couple of shows at the Underworld in London and stuff with Henry.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice to bring Joe into that. And then we played with Voivod the Underworld with Joe. Went to Europe and played in Europe with Joe. And
so you've got
then,
good
unfortunately,
experience out of being in the band for sure.
Yeah, and then obviously until recent, it was all good. Joe just had his child earlier today, so much respect to him. That's awesome.
As
it
in
was
today, right now.
Yeah, like
Oh, wow.
about 3-4 in the morning or something, which is sweet.
Congratulations.
He's just had a baby girl, so that's like awesome. Like but we didn't expect. Well, there was talks originally like, maybe it'll work out, but we kind of like all of us kind of knew like, nah, it's probably best if you should probably give time to this child and stuff and
absolutely
and your family and stuff like that, and and it was like, this is cool, man. The only issue was the record is coming out, and it's a very technical record, especially with the guitar playing. Joe did a great performance on the leads and stuff, but then there's also like Joe also invested like 3 years into learning the record and recording the record and stuff. So we were really like kind of burnt out onto like, who do we even ask at this point? Because we wanted to make sure it was someone we knew, someone who really got the vision of the band, because like Joss is a perfect fit, but before we even thought of like asking Joss, it was kind of like, who the fuck can we ask, like in the UK? Because it was kind of like, we kind of know everyone, at least like around our age, who has professional gear and plays in bands and would be able to do it. But then we were asking people, and then the response would be like, I don't think I'm good enough. Or it would be like a commitment of travel, because obviously we're in Leeds, and there was like no one in Leeds who really was a strong candidate at all.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, when Joe joined, obviously you said that a lot of Visitations was written at this point. So I can't imagine it's the easiest record to go away and learn. I can imagine it being a really difficult task, and obviously Joe knocked that out of the park, and then just to get to but we're still talking before it's even out.
Right.
And then you get to the point where you can release it, and then obviously that's not going to work out and stuff. And you've got to get someone else in to learn the album, and it's such a. I can imagine it's a very difficult album to learn.
The whole process of Visitations was full of like forwards and backwards motion of, there'd be one thing and then there'd be another thing, and then like I recorded my drums and then re-recorded them a year later.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that was no choice of my own, but then when Joe left, it was really like, damn, like who do we ask? And
totally,
we asked Joss, not really because we knew Joss from Separation, and we've played shows with them like loads of times. Really good friends with them. Those guys are like in Bristol. We asked him and was like, he's not going to say yeah. Like, no one's going to say yeah. Because everyone else had been like, nah, I don't have the time, and I don't think I'm a good enough performer and stuff. And he was just like, yeah, I'll give it a go. And it was like, right, this guy, he's in. Like, he's giving it a go. So, like, it was even like, if it takes him months to learn it, so what? Which is good, because obviously all this lockdown stuff's happened, and not to be like unfair on Joss, because it's such a big record to learn. We weren't ready to play. We played one show with Joss in January, and it was good. It was like good, but he wanted it to be great, and that's awesome, because he was like, we were like, yeah, it was really good, and everyone enjoyed it. It wasn't like, there was no issue with the set, but he was like, nah, it wasn't perfect. And it was kind of rushed anyway, because Joe left in December, so it was kind of like, can you learn this set and can you play it next month? Because we had a show in London with Cannabis Corp, so it was like, can you do it like next month? And thankfully he learned the over 3 tracks that aren't Moonbelt, and you learn Cosmic Dreams, and that's what we played, and it was great. I'm glad it was great. It was kind of awesome to at least have one show, because once that one show, if we didn't have that one show, it maybe would have allowed time for second out to kick in, and maybe because he does live in Bristol as well. It was like, what's the deal gonna be like? So with the show there, at least it was like, right, I've got something to work towards. I need to play this show. And it like for the benefit of Cryptic Shift, because the last thing we wanted to do was cancel the performance.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
So we played that show, then we played the last show with Joe, and then after that we had like 2 weekends worth of practices with Joss, going through Moonbelt and stuff, and not maybe like 80% there when lockdown happened. So we'd not really had anything booked. We knew that the record was going to come out. Obviously, this was like March, February time.
Yeah.
We knew the record was coming out in May. We knew that we'd probably be touring in later June, July. So we didn't really have anything booked. And then March was when the lockdown happened.
Yeah.
And here we are approaching July anyway. And it doesn't look like we're going to be playing shows for a while. So it's not like we've lost out on anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I was
totally awesome, to be fair.
I was kind of wondering whether, obviously, with the album coming out, you had put loads of time into pre-preparing for a tour, or booking this and that, and you would kind of cancel stuff. Did you have like specific touring plans in mind?
Shows booked. We had nothing booked. There was plans to like do a couple of release shows. We were going to do Leeds, London, and then do like Scotland.
Yeah. Because I remember you hit me up, kind of trying to look for dates and stuff. Right.
And then we were gonna like do maybe June or July. We were gonna do like 14 shows back to back. We were gonna try and pull off like a 2-week UK tour. Yeah. And like hitting all the towns like on like the weekdays and stuff. But that was never really booked. So it was kind of all just provisional ideas. Trying to figure out if people could get time off work, the early preparation kind of times. So we didn't really have to cancel anything. Just started not, other than like we didn't get a release date show or anything like that. Which is good because we kind of picked the release day to be on a Monday anyway. Obviously, we wanted it to be May the 4th. But like, we weren't like, oh, it's going to come out on a Friday. We're going to play on Friday and Saturday, and we weren't really necessarily relying too much on the release. We were going to do a release show. It was going to be good. I'm sure loads of people would have turned out. We were going to try and make them free entry and stuff like that. And kind of like celebrate the past 3 years of putting the album together. But
and you were going to do a listening party, right?
Yeah. We were going to do that like the weekend before the record. Well, the record was coming out on Monday, so it would have been the previous Saturday, like the 2 days before. And that was just like a close friends kind of thing. But obviously that didn't even happen. So that sucks. But thankfully, the record did come out, and this kind of gets back now to what you asked originally, saying that, do I think that there's been any kind of benefit to releasing it around this time and in this like current climate? And I would say so, yeah, because I don't obviously know how the record would have done. There's no way anyone could really predict that, right? I knew that we were going to get a good press run because we'd requested that from the label, and that was all given the green light. And we knew that the record was going to be like at least a really interesting like record for anyone who's into just general musicianship and stuff like that. And we put a lot of time into it. But everyone's at home wanting to basically check out new shit. They can't go to a show.
Exactly, yeah.
There's nothing else to do for like diehard music fans other than sit at home and listen to stuff, either stuff you've heard 10 times before, or stuff that's coming out. So I think everyone's like everyone's eyes were like on the release and stuff, and everyone had the time to check it out. So, which is good as well, because it's not, as you guys know, it's not the kind of record that you can just throw on and listen to once and be like, oh yeah, I enjoyed that or not.
Yeah, it's not a shag and bag kind of record.
No.
Yeah, it's
definitely like okay, I'm gonna have to listen to this like 3 more times.
Every time you listen to tracks on it, you're discovering something new.
Yeah, that's good, man.
For sure.
That's good,
for sure.
Yeah. I think definitely as well, like when, like I said, I kind of went back and started listening to what you had sent me ages ago, just before the whole sort of press releases that you were doing, and sort of saying like it's coming, the date is coming up now. And I think with it being like a lockdown, I was getting into a bit of a rut of like listening to just the same shit or not really listening to music at all. So it was quite refreshing. Like, this new release, and obviously like Hyper Jane came out on like an early release on one of your reviews as well, and kind of the stuff supporting it as well. Like Xander was talking about how, you know, he'd written it to actually root around a certain note rather than just be rooting around like the open string, and like having that kind of depth to it as well, you know. Like, everyone's getting bored during the lockdown, and having this kind of like in depth, like it's
good, man.
Really good.
It's good, man. There's a lot of layers to the record, maybe even that I don't hear, because maybe I'm conditioned by being part of the writing process and stuff like that.
It's one of those things when you're involved in it, it's, you know, sometimes you don't see it how people would see it. But that's another thing that I found. So obviously, like when I started listening to it a lot, I started messaging you and Xander a lot, just like, what's this all about? Explain this to me. And obviously the record as well, it's you know, it's pretty ambitious musically, but there's more to it as well, isn't there? It's got its own kind of story and lore, and it kind of ties in with Cosmic Dreams.
Right. I can't really touch too much on this. This is all in the mastermind of Xander, but I do know that the whole idea is that there's a character in Cosmic Dreams, and the lyrics kind of, you know, talk about what the character's going through. And then it kind of ends where Visitation starts. And that's why at the very beginning of Moonbelt, there's the dive bomb kind of effects that are at the end of Cosmic Dreams. I don't know if you noticed that. So that's like just in like reference to that in the storyline. And then, you know, Moonbelt is one big like chapter, let's say, of the character. All of the stuff can be deciphered through the lyrics. The lyrics are pretty... you know, because Xander didn't want to like write about any sort of, give any like smart ass meaning to anything. It's pure. This is a story for sci-fi nerd fans, fans of music.
But totally. Yeah.
It's not. There's no like overarching like morals or any lessons to learn unless you don't want to.
The way he described it to me,
unless you wake up one day in space, then, you know, maybe you can use some knowledge from Visitation.
The way that he described it to me, and I was like, that's cool as fuck, man. And he was like, I was like, so it's kind of like a concept album, and he was like, nah, it's not really a concept. I don't want it to have any like overarching themes or kind of like wanky, like, you know, it's more like a space audio RPG sort of thing. And I was like, fuck, man, like, you know, having that kind of like where the album's telling a story of something more, it's just a kind of fun sci-fi story, you know.
Right.
It's not something you get with a lot of metal bands. A lot of metal bands, there's a lot of serious stuff going on in that, you know, or like political sort of stuff. So it's really cool, like, hear something that's, you know, as creative as this in like a different sort of way. Yeah.
But that was like never pushed. I think that's just because like me and Xander aren't necessarily too into stuff like politics and like, you know, just expressing like morals and stuff like that. We, you know, obviously we, you know, but for us it's like we're just like super fucking sci-fi nerds, man. Like,
yeah, that's it.
I don't think we could either like try and put some sort of like moral like shit into the stuff, but I don't know how good it would be, and it probably
it wouldn't
really
make sense.
Unless it was like, don't trust artificial intelligence because this is going to happen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
but like, that's not what we want to do as creators either. It's kind of nice because, again, like this whole, we never sat down and went like, oh, let's create this sci-fi story record and become like pure into the whole putting it out there as like a sci-fi kind of package in general, because we started giving like way more attention to like the artworks and like the merchandise designs, and then like, even stuff like the way we'd word things in like posts and stuff like that. It was nothing like forced, but once we kind of like opened the gates to being like, all right, yeah, like we're gonna do this, like we're gonna be this, like, because I guess before it was kind of like Cosmic Dreams was written, and that was just like a one track death metal song that was like, oh, it's just this gruesome story about this guy who's like kind of dead, and he's like astral projecting or whatever, like through all these different dimensions and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty fucking brutal, man. But like, it's pretty sci-fi at the same time, right? And then that kind of just laid the foundations, like, because Beyond Ancestral Realms was pretty sci-fi, but that wasn't anything too specific. That was kind of like, oh, we're into like, we're getting into Voivod and that, and Vector and that kind of realm of sci-fi metal.
Yeah.
But then when Visitations came around and the whole idea of Moonbell and the story and all that kind of thing, it was like, right, let's not. There was no point in, well, we didn't think there was any point in kind of like trying to foreshadow anything and been like, oh, people can think of what they want, and then been like, oh, it's actually just this sci-fi story. It was like, now let's make this very clear, because it's at the end what we wanted to be passionate about. So it's nice because I don't really see us writing anything that ventures away from this. Now we're kind of like, it's kind of like we've discovered something we really enjoy doing 6 years later. It's great that it seems to me that like a lot of people wanted to, well, not wanted, but like share that passion and stuff, because there's not many bands that do the whole sci-fi thing, at least on like
on this kind of level. It's pretty unique, like, and I
right,
think that's
with
why,
like the storytelling and stuff like that, right?
That's what's kind of gripped me so much into it, is like,
there's a couple of like storytelling records out there, like Voivod, Dimension Hatros, and I can't even think right now, but for us it was like just being able to kind of do more than put out music, because as you say, there's a lot of bands out there that do just talk about politics or emotions or morals or and the thing is as well, like for me at least, sci-fi is something that will never get boring, because there's so much to explore, because the possibilities are endless. When looking at other kind of like genres of entertainment that you can bring into this kind of stuff, politics is very opinionated and like subject to what's going on in the world right now. The same for like history and stuff like that. Some people may be sick of hearing about World War II or whatever it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
And be like, it's just another band that sing about this. I'm sure there's people who feel the same about sci-fi. Don't get me wrong, but
it's
you can't rewrite the history, right?
Yeah.
But even with like, bands who sing dumb shit about killing prostitutes and stuff like that, or like all the fucking gore bands that stuff just gets sensationalized to a point where people become numb to it and it just gets boring. Like I remember being like 13 and hearing also fuck raped by elephants or whatever, been like, oh, this is sick. You know what I mean? Just because it's clickbait. But then now I'm just like, that's dumb. Like,
you look back on it and like,
I think
there's definitely like with something like the sci-fi stuff, there's a lot more replay value. You know, like people can come back to it and it's like not reflecting like.
To me, like that's also like the deal in general media. Like I don't really. Once you've seen like the goriest horror film of all time. You know, you cannot. You start watching horror films, you're a bit scared, and then eventually you're gonna watch them and be like, "Oh, it was nothing."
Aye.
But then but with sci-fi, it's kind of like there's so many unlimited possibilities, and I think that's why a lot of things have started to incorporate sci-fi a lot more. You see now places running to trying to spin horror on sci-fi, and even like a lot of the films that are coming out now are based on the future and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know? Like if you go on Netflix, there's a lot of films that are all very underlying sci-fi meaning to us. Even that new Chucky film they brought out, I don't know if you saw it. No. But I went to see it when it came out, and the whole idea was that like he was linked up to the Wi-Fi and it had control. It was like a bad microchip. Yeah, it had like control over everything else and stuff like that. It's just like this is just this is a sci-fi movie now, really. Like, it's not a horror film, right?
But like you say, there's more what else can they do? Possibilities with like that kind of science fiction element of it. There's so much more scope for what you can do and keep it interesting.
Yeah, and like there's nothing that determines what we can and can't do with this now. Like, which is awesome because we're kind of like, where do we even go with this now? Like, is there going to be a second part to the Visitation storyline or but like we're in talks like, do we do a second part or do we do a prequel or do we do a prequel to a prequel? Like,
it's like a franchise now.
So you've kind of established that you can work around.
I think it's because we're like super Star Wars nerds, so it's kind of like, what would George Lucas do? We should get George Lucas to write the next record storyline, then write the music. But I don't know.
What I think you've done,
interested, but
what I think you've done really well is
sure, thank you, man.
Is that you've incorporated it into the branding of the band as well. The way in way, as you said before, like the way you word your social media posts. It's very much like it just became the overarching theme of literally every aspect of the band, be it the merch, the music, the lyrics, the way you present. So like you just went balls to the wall on it. And I think that's why it has worked so well for you. Obviously, you've got great minds in there who are coming up with this stuff. Like I would have no idea how to come up with telling a story in this way with these lyrics. Obviously, Xander's mind is just, that's what he's great at. But he's also great at coming up with music that sounds the part.
For sure.
So like,
for sure,
the whole, it does to me seem like that the whole thing has come together to kind of finally what it's meant to be. So
and that's like what we wanted with the first record. Really, we kind of always viewed it as like this is you only get one debut record, right? So we wanted it to be really a big deal because and really like establish the band for what we wanted it to be. Like I said, I don't think we're going to go back on ourselves and start writing stuff
I don't think so.
Moral, maybe like incorporate stuff like that. Like I said, but it's cool, man. It's really good to just be able to. Like, I'm looking at the Arctic Chasm art right now, and I know exactly what like is kind of going on in that story, and that's based on the lyrics and stuff.
I think it worked really well.
Same with the Moonbelt artwork, the other one that's on the interior of the gatefold.
I think that's cool as well that you've got different parts of the artwork that sort of describe different parts of the story.
They're very like specific to the lyrical content as well, which is great because they're original pieces. They're not like pieces of art that we've found and then been like, oh great, let's use that. It's like, here's what is going on in this song. Can you create this artwork, please?
The original paintings are
awesome.
sick. Who
Sure.
who does your artwork?
A girl from Russia. I don't know her personally. Her Instagram handle is A Nagamasa. She kind of like really likes the art of like Dan Seagrave and all those kind of like classic 80s and 90s like metal artworks, which is great. But she did like a full canvas print painting of the two artworks. She did 5 artworks in total. I think only 4 of them made it to the record. A couple of them are like on the
incredible,
on the lyric sheet and stuff. But like even on the, I think on the front cover artwork, if you open the gatefold, like there's even like a hair on the scan of it, like, and it's just like, holy shit, man! Like someone put time, fucking effort. I could never create something like that.
Well, you can see that it's a real painting.
Yeah, I could never create like anything like that.
You can see the paint. Yeah,
it's unbelievable, man.
It's incredible artwork.
It's kind of great to like bring an artist into it who isn't too popular, you know.
Yeah,
like she did the Cosmic Dreams artwork as well, which is great. I remember a lot of people really were surprised by that artwork, which is great because it is up to standard of like people like Dan Seagrave and stuff like that who still gets used today.
Oh, it's incredible the standard of the talent.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
And it doesn't jump to me as being like a massively kind of metal artwork. You know, like there's...
we always get comments about people being like, "Why have you not included the logo on the front cover and stuff?" And it was like, well, that kind of takes away from the point of the record. It's kind of like we wanted it to be an elusive kind of record anyway, and I think that's why, like I said, we didn't want to. We like having the people not enjoying the 26-minute long song because it wasn't written for them. You know, if you don't like it, then okay, that's fine. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a creative decision, you know, just the artwork, and I think that obviously works really well in terms of the immersiveness of the album as a whole.
Yeah.
Because kind of when I open it up and like there's a picture of you in it, like with all due respect, I'm like, that's my boy Ryan.
Yeah.
You know, whereas when you look at the front, you're kind of like, okay, I have no idea what if I didn't know you already, I'd be like, I don't even know what kind of music this is going to be.
Yeah, like, well, I imagine just like
there's a world to discover here.
Picking it up in a record store, you know, it's kind of goes back to, you know, you turn around and you can see the artwork and the title and stuff like that, but like the whole idea of, you know, buying the record from the cover artwork, you know, which is like something
discovery.
Which is something that now, if I scroll through a rack of records, I'm gonna be familiar with a logo or a name for the most part, and then I've already basically judged an opinion. I might even judge my opinion on the band based on the logo, just because now
that's it.
There's so many examples out there that you just make comparisons and you already subconsciously kind of know the way it's going to be heading before you listen to it, right? And that's kind of what we wanted to isolate ourselves from with the artwork, kind of just the whole idea of picking it up and being like, what the fuck is this? You know, opening it up and then it's the other artwork and you're like, how do I escape this mystery? And then you have to turn it around and be like, oh, it's all, you know.
I think that's part of it as well, like the kind of like ambiguity of like, you know, and you were saying like, you know, you don't really care if these people that are going to immediately look at the 5-minute time mark and make up an opinion based on that. It's not for them, you know, it's for people who are going to sort of discover. And I think there's like a really interpretative sort of like element to it where like, so when I first started getting into the album, I wanted to know more. I wanted to look at the lyrics and dissect it more. I remember being really chuffed because there's a bit where there's the first section of Moonbelt and there's the kind of, the guy is getting targeted, the character, by the whatever is, you know, this moon base is like attacking him. And then you've got the and I remember thinking, that sounds like this cunt's just been like fucking shot down and crashed. And then you've got all this spacey stuff and the really nice gambit. And, you know, messaging Xander about that. And I'm like, here, is that what this is? And he's like, yeah, totally. You know, but like, that's not something, you've got to do a little bit of digging yourself. But all the information is there, you know. It's really
that kind of comes from like Xander's whole idea of creating that like sci-fi RPG kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And yeah, like you said, like I know it's not a record that someone, you know, it kind of forces you to pay attention if you want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you can either just, you know, listen to it and take it on face value for the music and enjoy it that way, or you can be like yourself and kind of, you know, be like, there's got to be more to this. What is going on? I want to understand this.
Really kind of dissect
and
it.
And that's kind of
that's recording
now. But yeah, like I was
go.
saying, like it kind of forces you to pay attention, and we wanted to kind of create a record that could be taken as face value for the music, or, you know, there's gonna be some level of music and sci-fi nerds that kind of catch on to the idea that, wait, there's another layer to this record, and, you know, maybe whether that takes them seeing it in a review or a feature that there's more to it than just the music, or seeing that they've heard or reading a lyric and been like, holy shit, there's a story here. Obviously, you guys know that it's a story, because you've been told by us that that's what the deal is. But I'd imagine for someone listening to the first time, hopefully they, like, you know, they figured that out. But the response for the record's been like really good, like worldwide and stuff. Pretty much sold out the first press in a month. And it's just incredible, man. Like, because we were kind of didn't really know what to expect, just because the record was so kind of ambitious in a way. I thought maybe it was either like going to be received really well, or people would kind of be ignorant towards it.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it's gone. The ambition's been recognised and received a lot of high praise. I think it's received all high praise. I don't think there's many negative reviews on it at all, unless it's people trying to compare us to other bands, which is kind of stupid.
Like I said as well, like I've shown quite a few people, you know, because I've been hyping this up big time. It's the first record I've been this like hyped on for a long time.
Awesome, man.
And a lot of the people do have that kind of dismissive, like, oh, 25-minute track, you know, like, I don't know if I can be bothered listening to that. But all of them, you know, then I'm sitting chatting to them on Messenger, and I'm talking to them, and, you know, they're sort of updating me as they're listening to the track, and it's got their attention, you know. And then by the end of it, they're like, you know, it doesn't feel like I've sat and listened to that for 25 minutes. There's no part of it that didn't seem like it didn't need to be there. Do you know what I mean? It's like everything is there for a reason. So yeah, it's obviously you've put a lot of work into like every element of putting it together. You know, like you were saying, like if you've got the artwork, you've got the kind of storyline, the musicality. It's just such a what's the word? It's an amalgamation of so many different things. Yeah.
Sweet, man. That's awesome. Like, we're really glad that it got received that way. And hopefully it has been turning heads worldwide in the underground death and thrash metal scenes, because, you know, I think, you know, I've seen comments where people have said, like, you know, that record's going to be good when you're already enjoying it in the first like 5 seconds, where it's just the sample straight away and stuff like that.
Sorry, I'm back.
It's all good. It's all good, Billy.
I have no idea what happened. Did the call keep recording, or did you start recording it?
I've started recording again.
Did you? Okay.
So we got
quite quickly after it went fucked.
Right, it's all right.
So it's all right.
But
I panicked I was going to lose the whole video for a minute, but Skype was ahead of the game there. That's fine.
Well, like you were saying, you know, obviously we've seen you guys at Belterfest, and you played Moonbelt, and it was, you know, in its early form. And the thing is, now having listened to it over and over, you know, it's quite something to see live. You know, like you guys playing this like very experimental, like, you know, lots of different pieces and not really knowing what to take of it. And I loved it because it was you guys, and it was cool as fuck. But I would love to see Moonbelt live now that I know all the parts of it, you know, to like, you know what I mean?
Awesome, man. Which is good, because we kind of thought it would be a bit off-putting to play live before release, which is why we never did it too much. I think we only kind of played it when it became more of a, when like you guys, it was kind of like, oh, these guys will really appreciate it because, we're they're his friends, and it's like these are the kind of people we want to play it in front of. Because like if you guys enjoy it, like if you guys were like, man, that song's a bit long, it'd have been like shit. Like what people think about.
Well, I remember you saying that it was a super duper long song, and saying that it was like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you played it, and it didn't feel like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I know when you say it, and it being like, you go 20 minutes, man. That's a long one.
Mm-hmm.
But then you done it, and I think you played Cosmic Dreams straight after, and it was like, oh wow, we're at Cosmic Dreams already. So it didn't feel like it was this. Yeah. I don't know, like it's all just in your head, when you hear that a song.
I never thought Moonbelt was longer than 26 minutes, even when listening to it. I don't know why. I don't know if I've listened to much that is that long anyway. I know Gorgon played East Dust, and that's like around the same time, but that's like just a one track EP, and that's like 26 minutes long. And that's like really fluent throughout. It flows really nice, so it isn't like, it just feels like, I'm listening to Gorgon, it's awesome. But obviously it's kind of like, not a lot of people have already kind of have any perception of what to expect of us. And Moonbelt is really different to what we were doing before. Now it is a natural progression, I agree on that, but regarding just obviously it wasn't as straightforward. Opening the record with that as well was kind of a big deal. Like I mentioned before, we didn't know whether to break it down into 3 songs or 6. Even if it was like, maybe at one point it was like, do we list it as 6 sections online and stuff, or but when we play it live, it's obviously one long track with these 6 sections.
Yeah, you're not going to cut.
We finally decided, like, no, because it doesn't feel like it's 26 minutes long, and I'm glad you guys agree, and I'm glad countless other people do agree.
Well, I think it works.
The best feedback we've got really on the record.
It works really well on the vinyl, obviously, because one of the main reasons that I like vinyl is obviously these days, if you're streaming something, you don't like it, you just skip it, and it's so easy just to move ahead. And vinyl is the only true way, really, to you want to show respect to the vinyl. You just want to let it keep spinning, and obviously it's the entire front half of the vinyl, basically.
We were worried that it wouldn't fit on one side of vinyl. There was a moment where we didn't know for sure if it was gonna fit, and then we got a test pressing it because there was all speculation as well that we might lose some like production elements because like certain frequencies can disappear and stuff like that. But it sounds completely like,
it sounds really really good.
It sounds like me and Xander started like noticing production values that we didn't notice before on like headphones and even in the studio. So it will
sound a little different, but it's I think it sounds really really good.
It sounds great, man.
You're gonna let a side of an entire side of vinyl spin anyway. So it doesn't matter how long the songs are, and if no one tells you beforehand, oh, by the way, this first song's 26 minutes long. Yeah. That's literally the only thing that intimidates people about it. If you just chuck the vinyl on and let it spin, the ebb and flow of the track anyway, it's, you maybe wouldn't even know. You would go, oh, maybe that's 2 songs. I don't know. It's just the actual act of knowing that puts you off. But it doesn't actually. It's actually completely regardless of the music. So if you just let that vinyl spin, it doesn't matter how long it is, because you're going to let it go until it's done, and then you flip it. So it doesn't matter. So it works really well on the vinyl, and it kind of totally takes away that kind of element of like how long the songs are, or cause and it sounds great. The vinyl's sick. You've done a great job on the vinyl for sure.
That is sweet, man. Sweet. Like, we're really happy with the label Blood Harvest, and everything they kind of sorted in preparation for it, and I think it's done really well. Like it was kind of like we got a couple of like offers from different labels, but Blood Harvest was like the most enthusiastic in his responses and stuff, and it was like this guy has genuine interest in the band. It wasn't necessarily like he wasn't like, this is great, I'd like to release it.
Totally.
Here's my terms and stuff, which is what we got from a couple of other labels. But he was like, I'm really enjoying this, and then a couple of weeks had turned by, and he's like, I can't stop listening to this. Like, it's really good. And
totally,
he was mentioning like discovering new stuff all the time and stuff like that. And he was like, yeah, this is awesome. And then the treatment that we've been given, like, we wanted it to be. We already decided that if whoever we were going to sign with, it had to be like right and kind of on our terms.
Yeah,
we wouldn't really like settle. Just like, oh great, this is an awesome deal. Let's do this. It was like, no, we want to change this and this because we want whatever's best possible for the record, really. But that's just because like we put 3 years into like the record finished, so we wanted to make sure it was at least some sort of. But it's done really well, and like I said, like. It's coming out on like there's gonna be like a second press pretty soon, maybe the next week or so. I don't know when it's getting announced. With a picture disc. There's gonna be like a super limited special edition. We're just kind of figuring out what to include on that. It's kind of awesome. We're definitely doing Xander's writing up kind of like a short novel. Explaining the story in way more depth than the lyrics and stuff.
Man.
I'm just waiting.
Sorry, Jack's bank
account. You're gonna have to hop back onto the Blood Harvest web store.
So that's what I'm thinking about, like, embedding the sci-fi depth so much into the entire brand, and it gives you so many more opportunities as to kind of other stuff that you can do that's still relevant to the band.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool just to be like total nerds, man. Like that's how I kind of view it.
Yeah, you get to try it out.
Like when he's like, "Oh, what do you want to do for like the special edition?" We're like, like can you buy any rocks from the moon? Like really stupid stuff. Like what can we throw in there? Like, oh, can you give everyone Phantom Menace Star Wars figures? All the others, like
you could probably source enough copies of like the Phantom Menace on DVD just to give it away free. Like, you've got to be able to buy the Phantom Menace on DVD from Amazon.
People just complain about not enjoying it.
People will be giving it away. Like,
but the novel,
I definitely think.
Maybe we can accept the DVD of the Phantom Menace as payment for the special edition. And I'd be happy with that. Like, that'd be awesome.
I definitely think that it's cool chatting to you about all this cryptic stuff. But I do want to get Xander on as well because I want to get deep into the lore, man. Tell me, so Enceladus, that's a moon, isn't it? That's like Saturn, Jupiter's moon. Saturn,
no, it's Saturn's moon, man. It's like the 6th largest moon of Saturn. And it's like a complete ice planet, which you can kind of see on the artworks and stuff. And it's basically supposedly got an ice surface with like a sea underneath, like a red kind of sea. I think that's what's depicted on the front artwork of the record.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, like that's. I think the inspiration for it being based on Enceladus is that NASA maybe reported a couple of years ago that that's like one of the most likely places for like life to be in our solar system and stuff like that.
Here,
like in the oceans.
I'm quite into the sci-fi stuff, but I've never really been that into like space, and like I'm quite into natural history, but not really like cosmic stuff. And I've recently been getting into it, and the only reason I'm asking is because I didn't know Enceladus was like a real thing. And then I was listening to this lecture the other night, and he's talking about all the gas giants and all their moons, and he mentioned Enceladus, and I was like, I know that. I've heard that somewhere before. It's the boys.
Well, yeah, it's educational as well, man. You know, it makes you want to kind of Google some words here and there.
Yeah.
And,
it's fun, man.
It allows people to learn a bit more. You know, because I'm not a huge sci-fi guy. You know,
right?
But you know, at the same time, I'm first and foremost there because the music, you know, and the prog side, the thrash side, you know, that blends a lot of things that I like.
Awesome.
But obviously the sci-fi element as well is like, it still totally hooks me. You know, even though sci-fi is not my kind of thing, you know.
It's not like additional layer to the record, right?
Totally, yeah, and it's done in depth enough for it to you can't ignore it. You know, so if you're like me, you're there for the music first and foremost, mainly. You can't just ignore the sci-fi bit because it's so entwined into everything that you kind of don't get a choice. And then I'm like, well, maybe I will read the lyrics because I'm not one of these guys that's a huge lyric reader, whatever. When I whatever. But then I'm flipping through while I'm listening to the vinyl, and I'm like, well, fuck, I never used to do this. So there's obviously something about it that hooks people in, and I think it's purely just as you say, that took 3 years to make. There's a lot of effort. There's a lot of thought that's went into everything. You know, it's an undeniable fact about the record, and that's probably one of the main. Well, that accumulation of everything is probably the reason that this is going to do so well.
Sweet, you know? Thank you, man.
I think another layer that kind of goes onto it is that, you know, the lyrics are cool, the vocals are cool. I've always been mega impressed with Xander because obviously he's a pretty mental shredder. You know, he plays some pretty technical guitar parts, but then seeing someone that can do the vocals on top of that as well. And he's such a chill guy, you know. He's so like he's quite reserved when you're actually speaking to him, you know. And every time I've met him, he's so chill. And then you see him on stage, and he's a fucking monster, you know. Like that, like the vocals that come out of him is genuinely a bit scary at times. But it's interesting to hear on this. Like all the samples are cool. There's some of those really spooky, clean vocals, like especially on like Moonbelt, and it's not something that, you know, like I'd kind of expected, but it fits so nicely. And with the samples as well, there's that little spacey voice in Moonbelt.
Right.
I can't get over that.
The robot voice.
Yeah. How did you guys do that?
I love the robot voice.
What's the story behind that?
I think that was just some sort of like vocal effect. Maybe like I don't really know too much about like effect units and stuff.
Yeah.
But I know that it was the whole story is that the character's like receiving some sort of transmission from. He's like I think he's in a space battle at that point. So he's kind of like receiving some sort of transmission from like an enemy craft, and he wanted to kind of like make sure that this enemy could be interpreted differently.
Yeah. So
which is why that vocal effect's there. Yeah, that's
oh, it's so cool.
That's why
it's like kind of like,
with some,
you know,
like,
please desist or we will be forced to blast you and shit. Yes. Yeah.
We're kind of figuring out how to say that live and how to do that live, but it should be fine, man. It should be totally fine.
Amazing.
I'm sure you'll find a way, man. I'm sure you'll find a way.
Yeah, we will, man.
I would love to see it get to the point where the stage production could grow to really kind of, you know, to like.
We're far about it, man.
To really,
like
Spinal
Tap and stuff when they're coming out of those massive eggs.
Yeah.
But
you know,
that'd be awesome.
Because it's the kind of thing that, you know, could really surpass that kind of underground show vibe. You know, the focus on the sci-fi aspect. There's so much room for that to grow. You know, if it ever does get to the point where you can really, you know, dramatize the live show. I don't know if that's something that you actually would do, but you know, the options there with the way that you've embedded the sci-fi.
It'd be like really awesome to do something that kind of gives it a bit of more of a sci-fi edge. Whether that be replacing John with a robot or you know, just having some more organized lighting and smoke effects and stuff.
I think so, yeah.
That would be cool. But I don't know, man. Like, I guess we just want to work what we can do right now. We're kind of just still figuring out how to make sure that we can play the record live to the best of the ability.
Yeah.
Well, just putting it in, making sure that it isn't one of those records that is like perceived as, the better on record than live and stuff like that.
Totally.
I don't want to be like, but I don't think that's ever been the case with us, and having performed like the other 3 tracks live and stuff like that, it's awesome. It's just like, figuring out stuff when it comes to like effects and samples and stuff with Moonbelt.
Yeah.
And like figuring out just how to get those down and properly organized and stuff.
So we're almost at about an hour and a half now, so we'll probably try and wrap it up fairly soon. But before we do, you should probably shout out where the record can be bought and stuff like that, and just promote yourself just briefly. People may as well know where to buy the Bad Boy now that we've spoken about it and stuff. So
the best place to get the record right now is the Blood Harvest Records web store, which can be just accessed by typing it into Google, or even on the Bandcamp of the label itself, where it can be streamed. We have CDs and tapes at very limited numbers. Maybe got a couple of hundred left of each available at the Cryptic Shift and Not Big Cartel store. Now, when live shows happen, hopefully around this time next year, we're going to be traveling through Europe. Things have been discussed, but they're not. Obviously, right now, no one. Everyone's trying the best to kind of plan ahead, but I think the priority right now is for a lot of agents and a lot of bands rescheduling things that were already gonna happen, this year. Because this year's now been written off. Really, I don't think there's any tours that are still going ahead. Maybe like in like December, November time, but as of then, everything has pretty much been cancelled. So hopefully there's some time for us to come over to Europe, and the same for Asia and the United States. All of them have been discussed. So if you're watching this and waiting for the Cryptic Shift UFO to fly over your neighborhood, then hold tight, because we're working on it, and that's a promise. Stop hating on the Phantom Menace, because
Yes,
I know there's a lot of people watching this who probably want to, have some sort of sour taste in the mouth when someone mentions the Phantom Menace, but it's not that bad, man. Like, you still got Attack of the Clones, where Anakin cuts the pear in half using the Force or whatever, and there's that whole love scene, and that's really good. But it's at the same time, if you're gonna complain about anything in the first 6 Star Wars films, you might as well complain about that before you go anywhere near the Phantom Menace.
That's fighting talk, bro.
Yeah. Why? What's your opinion on
this? Attack of the Clones is my favorite, and it's new to me to find out that everyone thinks it's pish.
It's all right, man, but it's fantastic, man. Like, there's so much like.
I mean, the thing is, a bad Star Wars film is still a relatively good film. That's
yeah, for sure, man. But like, when people want to complain about the Phantom Menace for whatever reasons they may have, because I can't imagine what could possibly be wrong with the Phantom Menace. The Attack of the Clones example is much worse. A lot of people hate on. I don't even know, man. But don't bother with Star Trek. I don't know. And there's something I've never got into about Star Trek. If you're gonna have to watch any series of any sort, you want to watch the X-Files, because the X-Files is awesome and it's got an incredible amount of replayability. Gillian Anderson is a total babe. Check out all the bands in the CST, because, well, I say all of them, all of the ones I'm aware, which is basically Bass, Disposable, Kingpin, Tempered. There's probably plenty more that unfortunately missed out right now while also trying to figure out what I'm gonna mention next. But all the bands in the CST, if you're not from the UK right now, are worth checking out. There's something about that Scottish scene that's not necessarily cut off from the rest of the UK, but they're doing their own thing, and that's fucking great. It's always a pleasure to go over and play Scotland. So if you're looking for bands that are outside of London, because it seems that everyone knows the London bands are the bands from, you know, the south, more than the bands in the north. Go check out all the bands in Scotland, because you're going to find some gems. And that's not just me saying that, because I'm with two CST veterans right here.
No, it is about.
I give them shout outs in the. If you want to find some good bands, go and check out the thanks list on the Cryptic record, because
some very big thank you, man.
Yeah, especially Xander's.
I know.
But there's heaps of great bands from the UK named on that. Yeah, awesome. That's all I've got to say, really. May the force be with you.
Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Sweet.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Yes.
We hope that the record continues to do really well. It seems like it's went down really well so far. Hopefully the momentum will keep going, and by the time you can play live shows again, everyone will have finally got their head around Moonbelt and memorized all 26 minutes of it. So
hopefully I'll still have my head around it. I've not played it with the fellas for like 3 months.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to, like, you know, start probably going on extensive runs and you know, climbing mountains and stuff like that. Nah, it should be sweet. I just can't wait to be able to finally practice again with them. But
all right, man. Well, we'll say au revoir for now.
Yeah,
this has got me hyped up. I'm off to go and listen to the entire Visitations right now. I'm in the mood now.
Man.
Yeah, I've just been the viral actually, probably.
And you should too.
Awesome. All right, thanks a lot, fellas.
Bye bye.
Hey,